Hello, everybody. I hope all of you are doing fine at this moment, a crisis that we're having right at the moment. And I would like to thank BAFSA for inviting me to give a talk on an important question that we are all facing right uh, at the moment. Uh, this is racism in India. Since this is a complex question, it's also difficult to give a fuller account of what is happening with us in this country. But today I want to share some of my understanding with you on how to understand racism, especially in a time of crisis. As you know, in pandemics, and this is one of the important characteristics of all epidemics, that it is not a virus only which is spreading. Along with the virus, the transmission of the virus from one body to the other body is also associated with the transmission of hatred, distrust, and atrocities. Uh, One of the peculiar features of racism in various parts of the world is that when somebody experiences racist treatment, the whole question of racist operation of power doesn't end at the moment of experiencing or encountering that atrocious, humiliating treatment. Uh, when we experience that encounter or being humiliated or being dehumanized, we develop certain feelings, sense of anger, a sense of helplessness at the same time, and also a deep uh, anguish of not knowing how to respond to such an act. So this is a moment of helplessness at the same time, uh, of not knowing how to respond to such a name that is being given to me, uh, the kind of treatment and an encounter, and the meaning of that uh, experience that I am finding myself. Uh, so this is the point. Racism works, in fact, in three levels. One is this: the moment of experience of being humiliated, of being dehumanized. The next moment is not able to know how to respond to such encounter. There is this sense of anger and humiliation, the sense of shame, of and embarrassment. Uh, but again, there is a third moment where the resist operational power actually works. If we take help from the state, from the government, from the law, it is precisely the feeling of helplessness, the moment of victimization, which is derived from that experience, is again used in order to help the victim. So, racism is not only about cultural prejudice, the sense of supremacy, consciousness of some people. It is also deeply governmentalized in a way, in the form of law. But primarily, we assume that the government is there, the law is there, the policies are there to help to mitigate the repetition of such experience. But at the same time, we must also note it very carefully that the help which is given to the victim through the state intervention actually mobilize the feeling of helplessness and victimization. Uh, uh, and therefore, this is the peculiar and also uh, a very difficult uh, mode in which racist power actually works. So I think whatever happened, a lot of things happen. We have seen this even before the crisis, also even before the crisis in metro cities in India, in Kolkata, in Mumbai, in Bangalore, in Delhi, in various states in the country, in various capital cities in the country. There is this sense of helplessness. There is a sense of anger among the people uh, come from the northeastern part of. Uh, when we talk about racism with regard to the question of feeling alienated, feeling discriminated, of feeling dehumanized, cannot be easily mitigated through the state intervention. Uh, uh, so the anti-racist discourse, uh, which has developed in various forms in this country, and also the kind of struggles that we are part of, which is moving against these racist operations, need to be expanded. It needs to go beyond the question of taking recourse to the, the help of law, the state intervention. And since this is precisely the three moments that we can easily see uh, when any racist attack or racist violence or incident happen to any individual of what is happening exactly is this circularity of this chain of uh, racist structure. Uh, so we have laws, we have policies, we have various kinds of security measures put in place in order to counter any kind of possible racist incidents. But at the same time, what I'm deeply worried is about the fact that even if there is a police force, laws and policies the government are placed in order to tackle the problem, the very measures which are arranged within the purview of the police intervention and the state's legislative power, cannot escape from racism. And this is where we all are situated uh, in this country. Uh, the other thing that I want to say with you is uh, this question of ordinariness. A lot of people talk about everyday life, uh, whether Lesotho and others talk about history as well as the transformation of everyday life as a battlefield, as a site of mobilizing the dominant capitalist structure, as well as other forms of dominant institutions, including the patriarchy. So here, I think the idea of ordinariness needs to be refocused today in order to fight back, in order to overcome, uh, so to say, defeat the racist position of power. So just to make sure that we have uh, uh, understanding of the nature of this ordinariness, uh, I want to remind you of this sociological historical works uh, on everyday life. One of the interesting and very insightful reading of everydayness is that it is produced through the work of capital. How do we spend our time in a day? We go to the office, we come back, we spend time with the family. We even think that we are having fun, but even the idea of the fun is also provided to us through a consumerist culture. So, if we historically read everydayness, what we can see is that the the way in which we live, we find ourselves in our everyday situation is already structured and produced, and within which we find our life. We live there. But more than that, one theoretical insight, and in fact, a political understanding of everythingness is that there is a residue, something that can counter the, the, the very manner in which everydayness is produced. For example, cooperation, helping one another, festival, uh, which is not contaminated. I want to use the term contaminated, which is not contaminated by the logics of capital and the state. So it is through working within the everydayness that we can also find ways to tackle, even to transform the very nature of everyday life that we're having. And I'm sure that we are familiar with the, the kind of distinctions that many people have maintained between everydayness and daily life. Everydayness uh, is a historical category which is consistently produced, maintained, structured. Uh, it's also ideological at the same time. It involves feelings, emotions. It also involves the way how we live, spend time. How do we find ourselves as a subject? So here, I think the sense of ordinariness is also uh, uh, created, produced within the resource operation of power. So Uh, Interesting thing that I want to say with you is that this racist incident, when it happens, a lot of people, including us, have a doubt of, of believing that this can't be a racist incident. Not everything is racist. This might be some individual sporadic cases. But at the same time, what we already miss out when we assume that this is not a racist incident, when we deny that there is no racism, or when we have seen that there is an incident which is deeply informed by racist consciousness, but when we deny that, what we actually miss out from this entire picture of denial is the fact that we don't question the ordinariness. So it is within this ordinariness of the happenings that actually blind us from seeing that this is a racist incident. So what we probably can do is to see ordinariness probably in two ways. One is all that we have known so far: democracy, uh, security, national integrity, national identity, uh, living together, and things so on and so on, are only one aspect of ordinariness that is produced ideologically and politically. But at the same time, when this ordinariness is revealed, uh, when the very form in which this ordinary exists is lifted, when the veil that conceals this ordinariness is lifted, then we can also see other forms, other aspects of ordinariness. So, during this pandemic, we have seen that there is this lockdown, there is this uh, distribution of food and other essential things. We contribute money, we form network, we help one another, which is not actually created by the state intervention. The state never asked us to do that. I mean, they asked us to remain inside our house. They never asked us to contribute money and help one another. They didn't do that. In fact, we contribute money to the Prime Minister's fund. But this is for the institutional mechanism of the state that is assigned. Uh, this is business of helping people in vulnerable people in a crisis. But at the same time, we go beyond, much beyond that. So the point of making this idea of ordinariness in relation to racism, uh, which is again for me uh, uh, a possibility to fight, uh, to overcome, to defeat racist power through ordinariness. So uh, at at one level, there is this ordinariness within which all these things happen, you know, uh, and we don't want to question it. We deny it. But at the same time, there is another aspect of this ordinariness which needs to be uh, elaborated, which needs to be expanded. And this is where hatred can be cornered. This is where this prejudice, uh, this atrocious treatment, this name calling, can be engaged uh, straight, uh, you know, head-on engagement with the incident and the perpetrators. Uh, so basically, what I am trying to say, and this is what I would also be, you know, sharing with a lot of other people uh, who are fighting against uh, the racist practice in this country. That uh, it is during this crisis, this medical biological crisis, um, that we need to create new forms of ordinariness, of cooperating, of helping one another, of loving, of respecting, of having some kind of a self-reflection and introspection, which is the only hope uh, to think about. Imagine a better relationship, better order of things, which can go uh, much ahead from the kind of order that we're having right at the moment. Uh, and thirdly, again, another equally important point I want to share with you is uh, about how to fight racist violence, racism in this country. Of course, there are various dispensations regarding the strategies and the tactics of fighting back racism in this country. There are extreme positions as well. But at the same time, uh, what we need to do, think and bring it to the entire picture of democratic struggles and justice and imagination of a better world is uh, to refocus on the struggle itself. Uh, so the question is, how do we fight uh, racism in this country? Uh, I think racism is not about cultural differences, about differences of biological, physical features. It is not even about uh, prejudice and expression of prejudice uh, by some over others. It is very much there within the secular institutions. It is very much there in the law, in the policies, which intend to help to mitigate racism. I'll give you one example. In the Prevention of Atrocities Act, uh, 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 especially in Section 3, there are interesting things happening. So they have a list of offenses that needs to be correct, that needs to be checked through this law. This is not a debate about how this act is effective or not. We're not going to that. What I can think of at the moment is even the instrument which is considered to be of help in order to fight racism or atrocious act of certain individuals over others actually restore things which are done, which can be done, which can probably be done by some people to others. Uh, so the offense uh, prescribed in the law in order to prevent it from being committed and of actually restoring and clearly stating that these are the things that you cannot do. I'm sure that the intention of the law is to prevent this kind of activities from happening. But at the same time, what is also equally important for us to see is that it is through the law, it is through the provision of the law, it is through the implementation of the law that the offense listed in section 3 of this particular law is restored. Uh, so everybody knows that some obnoxious element can be inserted through the mouth of a person belonging to scheduled caste and tribe. A particular name cannot be called, cannot be given, cannot be actually uttered to a person who belongs to scheduled caste and tribe. So the things are there, listed. And this is where I uh, uh, want to attract your attention. Uh, when I mentioned in the beginning that racism is also governmentalized. Uh, in the name of fighting it, it also restores the existing structures of helplessness which is there. So it's like a very complex thing for us to find ways and strategies to fight back racism. Apart from that, um, of, of with regard to the question of how to fight back racism in this country, um, we need to have some kind of experiment, some kind of conversation, some kind of engagement with the perpetrators, which is not mediated through the state intervention. There is this uh, uh, phone number, 1093, which is specially created for any kind of racist treatment given to anybody from the northeastern part of the country. And if you use this number, there is also a special police force, some kind of security arrangements, which is designed only for that purpose. And they're quite alert. And the police personnel is also trained, to uh, uh, attain to such kind of uh, things that can happen, anywhere. Uh, so when something happens to me, what we usually do is to call the police and demand for justice and all that stuff. So, in that sense, even the uses of somewhat like Chinky and other stuffs are controlled, so people don't use it. We're going to say that if people don't use it, we don't have racism. This is the question. So even if nobody used that word, nobody actually utter certain words, if nobody even uh, touch, spit on somebody's face, somebody's bodies, are we going to say that there is no racism in this country? This question is important because the whole idea of the ordinariness is created within this realm, which conceal things which are already there. So the point that I'm trying to make here, which is the concluding remark of this talk, is that we need to create a new ordinariness. We need to create a new form of engagement with such kind of inhuman practices. It's there. I also had experienced a lot of such stuff. I'm sure that a lot of people might have experienced it. In the early phase of my research in various institutions in Delhi, people actually said, how come people from the Northeast, including you, are very good in normative political philosophy and theory? This came from a lot of people and reputed research scientists in Delhi. I came across it. People saying you don't speak like a Northeast nurse. Is it racist or not? Can we actually take police help with this kind of remark? Can't. Right. So, finally, as concluding a remark of this conversation, is that racism is not working only at the level of interpersonal space. It has already racialized the ordinariness. It has transformed itself into the governmental practices. All that committees, specialized ministries, all those beautiful words with a very proper, caring intent of taking care of people, students from the northeastern region, living in different parts of this country, are never away from racism. So, in fact, today all kinds of discrimination, all kinds of unjust uh, utterances, unjust treatment, all kinds of institutional mechanism of excluding people from getting access to their political claims. Everything is racism. We need to expand our understanding of racism there because it has already transformed into the logic of the secular institution as well. So, friends, uh, so this is a bit short and a very brief kind of a intervention, and I want to say with you. Uh, 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 and to conclude by saying that uh, racism in this country has been uh, practiced uh, in ordinariness. The way to fight back racism must be in the ordinariness only. Uh, and that is the hope of the future things of uh, our imagination for a better world, uh, better relationship. And thank you so much.